Yeah, we are live.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's session of Builders of Bharat, a podcast where we speak with leaders of today to inspire leaders of tomorrow. And today I have with me a tech leader who, like a lot of us, wasn't sure about the degree that he would want to pursue, but now mentors multiple folks from multiple industries. His enthusiasm, dedication, and most importantly, his curiosity is what separates him from the rest of the world. Let me introduce you all to Mr. Nayan Naidu, Head of DevOps and Agile Practice at Altimetrik, a leader in tech with almost 25 years of experience. Yeah, it's 25 years of experience. He's worked with Wipro, Hewlett Packard, Project Place, Western Digital, and multiple other brands. Also, by any chance, if you have a printer on your desk, there are high chances that Mr. Naidu has launched or worked on those printers. Another thing that I want to talk about is one of the lines that is written in his profile, which is imagination, not just knowledge, is the source of creativity. And so that's so very true. I would want to welcome you to the session, sir. How are you?
Hey, Anmol, thank you so much for inviting me today, and
Yeah,
really happy to be part of this conversation. Yes, I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
we're all good, all good.
Yeah,
I remember when we were talking for the first time, the conversation was so free flowing. It was so chirpy, and so I was just looking forward to this conversation and just wanted to dive deep into this for our audiences
absolutely.
to just get an
Sure.
excerpt of your life.
Absolutely.
So this is kind of a ritual in our podcast. Whenever someone comes to our podcast, we start from their childhood, right? That's where we want to scratch the surface from. So could
Yes.
you share some insights about your childhood? How did growing up in a smaller town and having a diverse like ancestry from Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh influence your values and ambitions?
Yes. Oh, thank you
Yeah,
so much. I mean, yes, it's an interesting journey that I started my life with. I come
yeah,
from a small town called Chitradurga, which is in the border of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh.
yeah.
My parents migrated from Andhra Pradesh and settled in Karnataka, and I was born and brought up in Karnataka. So
Right.
interestingly, this has been a conversation, and the builders of Bharat, whenever I remember that joke that some of my colleagues in UK used to make of. They used to call me Mr. Bharat because I never used to
Okay.
say whenever they used to ask me, where are you from? I used to say, I was getting confused because I couldn't say Andhra or Karnataka because they were all
Yeah.
like, where exactly are you from? Then I'd say, I'm from India. So that's why people used to make a joke out of me and say that, it's Mr. Bharat. So jokes apart, yes, born, family which is mostly from Andhra ancestry,
Yeah.
all farmers background from the father's side, migrated to Karnataka, and my mom was a working woman. She's a retired high school teacher, and because of her is where a lot of our values have been at least inculcated into us. Me and my elder brother. My elder brother works as a scientist in ISRO. He's yeah. So it's been an interesting part, especially when we have two different ancestries. And what happens is, which language do you learn first? So I
Okay.
I learned Kannada first because that's what everybody was speaking around me, and eventually learned Telugu as well. One advantage that you definitely get is you become multilingual by default, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
at least four languages, something that I know is mostly because two languages were kind of imposed onto me because of my surrounding and my background upbringing. Kind of
Got
helps
it.
to have a conversation with anybody that we meet.
Definitely, sir. And that clearly shows with the kind of orator you are. Also, completely understand why people were calling you or referring you as Mr. India. So that makes sense. But can we go deep into your childhood regarding how did you generate this interest in tech, or was it not there in the first place? Or were
Yeah.
you like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing that did happen is, you know, I had to move multiple cities, mostly because of
Yeah,
my mom's job.
yeah,
I have been in southern part of mostly the coastal region of Karnataka as well, had been part of some part of the central part of Karnataka as well. I had a chance to get the multiple flavors, and one thing that definitely helped is to actually make friends because every time you keep switching the place, you have to make friends and kind of
yeah,
helps you out in actually making more friends.
yeah,
Now, one thing that also used to happen is at least in our high school, at least in our middle school and high school that we studied, there used to be these science exhibitions, which are kind of part of the conversations that we go through. And interestingly, there is another thing that happened, right? I was in an English medium school until my fifth standard. My mom
Okay.
gets transferred to a remote city in Karnataka, I mean, called Molkalmur, which is in the Andhra Karnataka border again. And there's only Kannada medium school there. Okay.
Oh,
And it's a huge shift for me because I didn't even understand what they were actually trying to tell and explain on the board, right? So
yeah,
that year was one of the toughest year for me. Now, one thing that it also helped is the language interest, right? Because
yeah,
even
yeah.
now, today, I can comfortably write in Kannada as well as read Kannada. And I do write some poems and all, mostly because of that. Because of that
Wow,
language, which was kind of, I had to learn, I was forced to learn, and that eventually became part of me. Now,
wow,
coming back to your question in terms of how that kind of influenced my way of thinking about technology,
yeah,
definitely I didn't have the plans to get into technology stream. Okay.
yeah.
So
Okay,
my brother was an engineer. He was studying
yeah,
his engineering already, and I had my interest was always to go towards medicine. Now, one thing continuously happened was during my early days in the college, high school as well as middle schools, all the science projects that used to have at the state level or district level and state level, something that I used to be part of the team. Knowingly or unknowingly, I used to be part of the teams. Most of the times it used to be a collective vision, but at least the presentation, expression, other stuff that used to help me a lot. So I'll be one of those people who will be there standing and answering those questions which comes our way because some people would definitely come and keep asking those questions, right?
yeah,
So that used to happen a lot. That again maybe had some interest. And another interesting thing also happened was my brother being an engineer, engineering student, he used to get this nice magazine called Electronics for You,
yeah,
which used to be a famous those days magazine. And that's something that I used to just read through. Not that I was having any interest, but I used to read through. And the first calling bell of the house was done that way. First wall clock was done that way, where we had to set it up, arrange it, and do that. Water level controller was done, handmade, and things like that. This is something which happened as part of what my brother was doing. I was just looking through it and also try to make it happen. So, I was introduced to ham radio, also something similar in my plus one, plus two, because I just tried building one. So this is something which was happening in parallel. Having said that, my interest was always to go to medicine. I, in fact, actually rejected my results for 1 year. Uh, Took a break for a year to go back to medical assets. I tried for the first time. I didn't get through because I was busy with my NCC camps that was happening because I was
yeah,
part of the Republic Day contingent for which I was actually trying to get qualified, and I was there until December. December is the time where I started saying, "Hey, this is not going anywhere. I had to go back and study so that I can get back to my medical field that I want to get into." So I come back, I try for the first time, I get some percentage that was not really helpful. And I discuss at home, and they're like, "Yeah, why don't you actually take a break and try for 1 more year?" So I tried for 1 more year, and last seat again, I think I was sitting here, and there used to be, seating arrangements for KCET those days where you'll actually get the seats allotted. So the last seat of medical that got lost was my previous seat. So, and I kind of knew like, okay, this is not going anywhere. And
yeah.
I looked at my brother, elder brother, who was there with me, and he's like, yeah, I think it's engineering for you. So that's what happened. And, that's where my engineering started. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. But to be honest, you were a multitasker because NCCs are not very easy to go ahead with along with your school days, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's something that you really need to be passionate about. And considering the level you were in Delhi back then, right? You had to come back from Delhi. So hats off to you. And another thing that I observed was how bravely or probably to say that you took your failure like a sport, right? Because you had dropped a year for a seat in medical, and trust me, it's if the seat is like this close, it becomes very difficult, right, to take a
Yes,
failure.
it
But
does.
again, hats off to you, sir. Now let's jump right into engineering.
Sure.
So what was it like studying engineering at
Hmm.
BIT, right? And then how did your interest in practical applications, as we discussed, over theory
Sure.
impacted your learning experiences over a period of time?
No, I think that's a great question there, right? So what we observed is essentially
Yeah.
what I started seeing was the
Hmm.
first year was a common year in the
Yeah.
engineering. So we
Yeah.
just go, we just start learning all the basics
Hmm.
of engineering. That's okay.
Yeah.
Because you get a flavor of everything. You get a flavor of electrical
Hmm.
engineering, mechanical engineering, civil
Yes.
engineering, and a bit of computer science, etc., etc. I took electronics and communication as my branch. Because
Okay.
again, the question was I had to take either mechanical, which used to be evergreen field those days, or I had to
Yeah.
take electronics, which was
Yeah.
again a chance to either go towards computer science or electronics. That was
Got
the
it.
option that we had. So obviously, I took the electronics and communication. And one thing that I started seeing was my inclination, mostly because of my past experience in doing some of those experiments or something like that. It kind of always had that inclination to be more practical oriented than theory.
Okay.
So my theories questions used to be like, there are times where I would exactly go out of, we used to have those out of 8 questions, you're supposed to answer 5 questions, and each question will carry 20 marks and things like that, right? So I'd do that, and I'd exactly go with 3 or 4 questions prepared, and I'd exactly score that kind of marks, and that's about it, right? So that used to be my approach, mostly to make sure, I clear those exams with good amount of theory mark, but practical used to be something very different. I used to love doing practicals, and that's something which used to be, visible in the marks as well. And most of the times, I and another friend of mine used to be there. Yeah, he works for Microsoft. His name is Manjunath, and we used to be the one of the couple of earlier guys who used to kind of come out of the lab. So it used to
Got
be
it.
like a competition, like saying that, oh, who's coming next? Who's coming first? So that's
Got
the
it.
way that it used to be. Again, the approach that I used to take was more to understand how it needs to be done, how do we implement something, than just understanding the theoretical aspects. That kind of helped me, I guess, because I'm even now when we actually look at it, I'm more of a visual person.
Hmm.
For me, if somebody gives me a text of say 20 pages, I was like, yeah, I can read it. Definitely, it's not that I can't read it. It's just that help me visually. How does it look? How does your plan look? Kind of helps me to visualize and start looking at, okay, work backwards and try and make it work. So that's probably the approach that kind of helped me. Yeah,
Got it. Got it. But that's really, I would say, commendable, because a lot of times mugging up is not the solution, right? To understand the back end of everything, and that's where you can be creative, right? Once you understand everything, is once you know where your playground is, right? Where you
correct.
can just do your thing and probably increase the output by 10x or 20x.
Yeah,
So agreed, but I was so just telling that I'm a mechanical engineer turned into a marketer. So I
correct.
took the evergreen branch.
Of
While you
course.
were saying that, I just thought that I'd tell you this. So
Nice.
now let's head over to the placement scene. How was the placement scene by the end of your college?
You
And
know,
yeah,
Yeah, it was actually those days we hardly used to have 1 or 2 companies come over. Now
yeah,
BI Bapuji Institute of Engineering and Technology, which is Davangere place, is pretty famous
hmm,
now. We have quite a few companies which go for campus recruitment, including our Altimetrik.
wow,
So that's a change which has happened over a period of 25 years, I must say. And
yeah,
recently I had a chance to be there in the campus to kind of talk to the 6th semester students to help them
got it,
understand, how should they actually focus on, especially the space of security, cyber security. We did have a
got
chance to
it,
talk about it. So if
got
I
it.
look at back those days, we used to have 1 or 2 companies coming in and 1 or 2 students getting selected. The moment we finished the course, it was more like, okay, come back to Bangalore and try looking for your jobs.
Okay,
And and the resume services or the LinkedIn services that you have right now is not something which is available. It was
got it.
resume in the hand, and you need to actually go around places. If you know somebody, they'll probably accept the resume. Otherwise, it will go into the dustbin, right? That used to be the case. I know it may look like, if you look back at it, it may look funny, but it's a fact.
Oh my
And
God, it's
we
really
have to live
tough,
with it.
right?
Yeah, it is tough. It used to be
Yeah,
tough. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So now I think the model has changed and the internships have become part of the curriculum itself, where
yes,
the exposure gets become easier to
yes,
the students. But those days it was
yeah,
not that straightforward. So obviously, yeah, my first job was very interesting. I
Yeah.
went and gave my resume. It's company is called Century Systems, and they were like, "Okay, can you write a test on C programming?" I was like, "Yeah, that's one programming language I know. I'll probably try." And there used to be a book called Yashwant P. Kanetkar, authored by Yashwant P. Kanetkar, who had written the books on pointers in C programming. And that's something that we had actually learned during our engineering also. Something that I kind of went through, and next day I had to write the exam and luckily cleared. And they're like, okay, come over. We'll probably start from some X amount of rupees, very small amount. Those days used
Yeah.
to be very, very basic salary that we used to get. And yeah, Chandrasekharan was the CEO's name, and they were trying to work with the KPTCL, which is the power transmission company in Karnataka, trying to help them build the energy meter calibrator systems. I was taught Visual C++ there in-house, and I'll give you a very nice example. I used to have a colleague, I can't recollect his name, and you'll not believe he was just 12th pass. Actually, not even
Oh
12th pass,
God.
he's 12th fail. Okay.
Oh,
He knew Visual C++ in and out. And well, the way
wow.
that he used to teach us, right, how to
Yeah.
programming Visual C++ is completely different, right? Something that I even actually owed to him, especially some of the programming skills that I learned. So we had to work with the analog to digital converters and actually connect whatever is happening right now in IoT, where you
Ah.
actually get all the data remote. It used to be through the
Yeah.
connected cables.
Connectors. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everything was a connected cable, right? So we used to manage the power, the pressure, the temperature, look at the details, and capture the data and show it on your computer screen. So we had built those big, computer screens, multiple computers, of course, and try and do that. Not the one that we have right now. Everything is actually set up for us, but it used to be a completely different way of looking at it, and projectors, of course, to show the screen.
Yeah.
And the data is to be collected, and first they give me a 386 machine, which is, I'm sure it's something which is mostly in the museums nowadays. So with no mouse as such, it was only the keyboard, something which for a period of time I got used to, because I don't use mouse as much as people use. So I'm mostly a keyboards guy. So it so happened that we were supposed to, yeah, C programming, right? Go ahead, extract the data, show me the data. That was my first program. 15 days was given to me, read the code, get the information, start showing me the information. So that's how the programming started. And I think that 1.5 years I was there with them is something that was very interesting. And the colleagues that I had, a few people who were seniors to us, were very helpful. There used to be people who moved on to very nice companies at a later stage, but that actually helped us to learn a lot of things. I think people keep saying that, right? At the smaller companies, get to learn a lot.
Yes. Yes.
That's actually true, and at least that I had an opportunity to do that, and including we had to create even the documentation for the product that we are building, and uh, my CEO would be reviewing it directly, and he'll be like, "Hey, this is not correct," and I would have probably printed the document at least 10 or 15 times. Okay, the whole document set,
Yeah.
just to make sure I'm correcting it. So we get an opportunity to work end to end, all the way from designing the system, implementing the system, hardware or software integration, and the documentation. So that's the kind of product development exposure that I got in the first company.
Amazing. Amazing. Also, just stressing on a point that uh, skills are so very important than just degrees, because the colleague that you just talked about, right? A lot of times we judge folks on basis the kind of degrees where they're coming from, but I think the skills and the exposure these days, even not talking from a very tech per se, but if you see from a media per se, there are kids who are just 12 pass, but they know advertising like in and out. They're so
Correct.
brilliant, so sharp.
Street
So
smart.
I think that's commendable. But obviously, having a good or a great first job with experience like these, it clearly helps or gives you a very good takeoff for the entire
Yes.
career, right?
Yeah.
So now we'll move on to the next big thing where you were a part of. Can you talk about your journey ahead?
Yes. So 1.5 years, then obviously I was looking for change, and I
Yeah,
moved into a small company called Comat Technologies. It
yeah,
was essentially those were the people, who used to work with one of the laboratories in Bangalore, the clinical laboratory called Anand Diagnostics Laboratory.
Okay.
Uh, they were the one who actually implemented a lot of automation there. So I
Okay.
had an opportunity to work with them to extract the data from all the robotic equipments which actually inject the reagents into the blood samples, do the tests in an
Oh,
automated way, collect the data, and put it in a database in the system. We had to understand the communication
got
protocol,
it.
extract that information, and put it into a local database. So every device, Philips or Ricoh or Siemens, they all have different protocol.
Yeah.
Okay, because they have their own standards. And we had to read through their data sheets, understand how it works, and actually make sure it actually the data is collected in the way where our software can understand, because we had to get that data into the next level details, right? So I had an
Got it.
opportunity to work there, and there are leaders who are actually helping me out in understanding that part as well. So that kind of gave me a completely different exposure as to how the things happen. And that was also the boom time. It was roughly around 2000, year 2000. I'm sure people who are youngsters, probably some of them would have not have born neither.
Or
And some of them actually are born, at least if they go back and look at the history, that was the bubble where dot-com bubble happened. And,
yes.
and a lot of people lost their, jobs and things like that, because there's way too many dot-com websites that they were trying to build.
Yeah.
But interestingly, there was some expansion plan which was happening in some of the services companies, major services companies in India. One such opportunity came my way was in Wipro Technologies. So obviously, since I was looking for a change and I kind of saw that there's an opportunity for us to look for, I looked at this opportunity of Wipro Technologies, and I moved from Comat Technologies to Wipro Technologies into the global R&D team.
Okay.
So that's where the journey kind of went to the next leg, actually.
Yes. But now your journey over here at Wipro was a very, very comprehensive one, right?
Yes.
Probably you can say that this was your foundation, if we can call it.
Yeah.
Uh, it was a very, very strong foundation, right?
Yes.
Uh, just take us through that journey.
Yes. Absolutely. No, I actually owe a lot to Wipro Technologies, especially the leadership training that we all received. Something that we have learned is, many leaders come out of Wipro. That's
Yeah,
something. And even in this company that I work with, I have at least 50, 20, 25% of the company, leaders who have come from there. So that's the kind of environment that you have. When I started, I was part of this HP Offshore Development Center. Hewlett Packard was actually outsourcing for the first time, and that was with Wipro, and we were trying to work on some of the interesting projects. Especially, I was in the imaging and printing division, which
yeah,
was mostly focusing on the printers.
yeah,
So yeah, I had a chance to work on some of these early age printers. The desk inkjet technology was just coming out, and one example I definitely like to quote. One of my close friends, his name is Mahesh. He's based out of US now. He actually called me once and he said, "Hey, you know what? I ordered a computer." And I was like, "Hey, nice, congratulations." And he's like, "But you know what? I also got with it. I got a printer." I was like, "Okay, what printer did you get?" "Hey, it's a DeskJet printer. I think it's new in the market, and its name is some. I can't tell the name exactly." So,
yeah.
so I was like, Mahesh, you know what? That's the printer I worked on." I was like,
Oh,
"Seriously?" I was like, yes, that was the release that we made in that year, and it actually sold 1 million pops in that
oh,
1 year. Okay.
yeah,
And this was actually in association with HP Singapore that we were actually working, and it was a competition product for an existing product. And it was an interesting journey for us because I had a chance to go to Singapore. That was my first international visit. And some cultural shocks as well,
yeah.
because I had never been to outside India, and it was very interesting journey for me. Though I was there for hardly a few months, but it was very interesting journey from the fact that why it is important sometimes to maintain the brand value, right? Um, because I'll tell you a simple example. This printer that I was working on, it was very secretive project, and I was not even allowed to actually transfer the data from my dumb computer, which where I was just coding and making the changes that are necessary for that to happen. I can't even transfer anything out of this computer to any other computer because I was in an isolated network. it doesn't stop there, Anmol. It actually had a camera looking at my screen as to what I'm working. So that's the kind of exposure that I got, and it was very nice. And it didn't stop there. At least a couple of other experiences that I had. We used to work on OEMizing some of those printers for other vendors. Say, HP will have tie-up with other vendors in other countries so that they can release under the name of those countries, and it will be powered by HP kind of thing. And I used to do the installation packages as well as devices, driver customization for those. So yeah, I had a good, interesting experience in terms of releasing some of the products end to end. Starting all the way from customizing it and making sure that the release happens and it's available in multiple locales, as in international languages. So we did it for European countries as well as we did it for Japanese market. Very interesting experience because my stay in the US, first time that I visited in the US for a few months, was mostly to try and make sure this business work happens. Right. So, very interesting journey in terms of how the changes in terms of the technology also happened, and how we could see the multifunctional peripherals coming into picture in the smaller size, and how that was actually becoming a part of your home office. And we also
Yeah.
started seeing that, there is a challenge that in terms of how do we work. So we started seeing that there were projects which are coming, and people were asking us to do this project for a few months, make the changes, test it, and et cetera, et cetera. So it was almost like a 3 months project. We were like, after some time, at least for me, the feeling was we were discussing collectively as a team, and what can we do to automate it? So we started looking at, okay, let's shrink the time. See the customization that's needed. Let's shrink the time. And we could actually do the whole process that we were taking for 3 months within 15 days.
Wow.
So that kind of shrunk the time that is needed. And we started with one, branding that we were trying to do for one particular printer, and we extended it to multifunctional peripherals. That was an interesting journey where, automation came into picture. And obviously, my next question was, what's next? So obviously, I was sent to US for a few months again to work on some specific, printers that was in the laser jet technology. Was there for roughly around 6 months and came back. And that was the time I was doing my master's through distance education in information systems. So though my R&D experience, global R&D experience was more in the embedded side and mostly in the peripheral side, it was
Yeah.
important for me to try and look beyond that. And that's where
Yes.
this kind of executive MBA kind of helped me. What happened was, it was weekend classes. We had to go through this whole sessions, and eventually we cleared it and started seeing my interest growing in the enterprise side. I was like, okay, what to do next? Let's look for other options. And
Yeah.
I reached out to my leadership and said, hey, I definitely would like to work on something else. And they didn't have an option in the global R&D team. Then there was another company for which they were looking for setting up a new team. So I was like, okay, can I apply? I applied through this. There was an internal job posting that was there, and I moved in there. Obviously, I had to go through the interview cycle and all that. So what also happened, Anmol, is, during this time, we developed very good friendship with a few people, right?
Oh,
Because I have a
yeah.
few friends whom I know for 25 plus years now.
Yeah.
And they have been integral part of all this growth path, right? So I
Mm.
have a close friend called Nagendra Prasad, who's right now based in Panasonic USA, as well as Srihari Narayan, who works for Honeywell right now. So these are friends who are like, been friends for life, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we collectively grew on all this, right? Because we were exchanging the ideas in terms of how does this work? How do we change and all that? So I was one of the initial ones to kind of move out of the common group that we had kind of created, and started looking at enterprise solutions as such. So this company that I was working for, we had to actually get the data, knowledge transition from US to India, because they
Wow.
were actually reducing the team size in the US, and I had to get the transition for 3 months, sitting there and understanding and actually work backwards. And there's a foreign national, not local US person, but he was also on H1B, who was losing his job because of this transition, and he was supposed to do the transition to me. It
Oh.
was it was a very interesting, experience, because in the whole building in the downtown
Yeah.
of Chicago, it will be only him and me in a one particular
Oh.
floor, right? So it used to be a very interesting experience in terms of how they actually used to, it's emotional for them too,
Yeah.
because they were losing their job, right? I complete respect to that. And again, it was not personal, right? I mean, we are also trying to do the business. So it
Yeah.
took some time for us to actually get that project back to India and set up the team here. We grew the team, right? I started with small team and actually grew the team here. Interesting concept there is that is one of the times where we actually had to do this 24/7 support for the product. This product actually, this company has a responsibility to file the security documentation to Security Exchange Commission of the US. So they expect that in a particular format, and we are supposed to. I was working on one of the tools which converts that into a particular format. Obviously, including the CEO or CIO of the company, we were on the 24/7 call. We were
Mm.
given a separate phone. We were actually having a rugged laptop that was given to us.
Mm.
And the moment I moved back to India and I see one fine morning, somebody's digging in front of my house, I was like, "Who are you guys?" Then that was the first time the Airtel connection was happening. The broadband connections were happening in Bangalore.
Oh, okay.
And there used to be a cab always in front of my house because I was the nearest to the office, and I had to, go if there is any call that comes, if at all anything fails, because the laptop is there, computer is there. If I'm not able to connect to the network, and obviously I have to go back to the office. So that's a model that we have set up. It was a good, interesting journey there for close to 3 years, and that's the time where I got exposed to a lot of things. One is I started realizing some products that we think which is essentially used by everybody. Some of the tools that we think is fantastic actually have bugs without we realizing it. We'll be using because we don't see it, because we don't use it in the way it's supposed to be using it. And the competitive products were actually working much well, and they were not even in the market because they were specifically used for the conversion, documentation conversion that I was trying to use. Good exposure there. Spent there for 3 months, 3 years, and obviously became first time manager, trying to help the people and continue to grow as as an individual. And I wanted some more exposure in international exposure.
Yeah.
So that's essentially where I was looking for, another opportunity. That's when I kind of had this chance of looking for another account in which was based out of UK. So I had a chance to work for one of the leading energy and utility customer from the US, so from the UK. Spent good 3 years there. Had a chance to build the integration center of excellence and work for the customer, leading their integration center of excellence as well. And that's kind of was very interesting. And in fact, we started small. I had the exposure of actually how we work in the space of geospatial maps, the ArcGIS and products like that. And we did some system upgrades there. Very interesting to see the culture, as well as also try to see how different the way of working is, because after 37.5 hours I was not allowed to sit in the office. My reporting boss in the UK will come and say that, "Hey, Nayan, you're done, please go." But within those 37.5 hours, the efficiency of the work is to be so good. You hardly get any time, other than the meetings, you hardly get any time to actually breathe. You'll be working, working, working at a fast pace, but you do get a lot of time to actually be yourself. Go back,
Oh,
you actually pursue your hobbies. You have a chance to actually look at, okay, what's this? That's where my reading habits improved when I was in the UK. I started running, which I had stopped long ago during from my NCC days. I started doing that. I relearned swimming and things like that. There are a lot of things that we had which could actually happen because of my 3 years there. So towards the end of third year, my reporting boss was US based from the customer side. She said, "Can you shift to US?" Uh,
oh,
I was
that's
like,
really sweet.
and I discussed with the family, and family is like, "No, you keep going every place, but I can't keep coming with you. So maybe it's time that we go back." Okay, I decided to come back, and I discussed with my leaders, and they were like, "You know what? The role that you have played so far is so big, and obviously, if you come back to India, in Bangalore, you may not have the similar kind of role. You may
Very true.
probably have to shift to Hyderabad, say, see how you can grow."
Mm.
And I shifted alone for the initial days, and I spent almost a couple of years there. And that was a very interesting program because we actually did a transformation program, global transformation program for the energy and utility vendor there. The team size was massive. It was close to 200 people those days itself, and it's a massive transformation which happened almost for a few years. And I had an opportunity to work with the leaders, learn a lot from the team members as well, because it was going on for, it was very interesting learning, especially SAP based migration that was actually happening. Because both the distribution, gas distribution business of the customer, they had to actually move all their system onto SAP. So that was the work which was happening. That exposure was nice, and also amount of work was also nice, right? Because I used to start my day at 8:39 in the morning and leave the office only after 10:30, 11 in the night, mostly because I used to say bye to the guys who were actually going home in UK. So that continued for a couple of years, and that was my journey in Wipro.
Understood. It was so comprehensive, but with the glow that you have on your face right now, clearly it feels that you enjoyed it so much.
Yes, yes,
Uh, but that's what passion is. I feel passion is when you truly feel that thing. So when we're writing the title for this session, right? Uh, a junior writer from my team, she just came up to me and said, "What do we write?" I just told her, "You write never settle," because that is the kind of persona that you are, right? If we see your journey, okay, then I was doing this, okay, but side by side, I was also doing my executive MBA, but this and that. But this urge to constantly learn, to constantly upskill, and to constantly enjoy what you're working, I think that's very important, right? And
absolutely.
I think that's where you led the path for your journey. And just we'll take a small break and we'll play a quick rapid fire because there's been a huge career journey about you.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
we'll just take a quick break, and it's a very simple rapid fire. You just
Yeah,
have to be very quick,
sure.
and I'll just tell you two options for everything, and just choose one.
Okay.
Okay. So the first is very basic: coffee or tea.
Coffee and tea. I'm sorry, but
Oh, okay. So what's the best advice you've ever received?
so best advice I ever received is leadership is not just about one specific skill. It's a combination of multiple skills. That's something that I got it on pretty early stage because people used to suggest I'm only good at teaching.
Oh,
Then as somebody spoke to me and said, making sure that everybody understands what you say is also one of the important skills of a leader. So
that's
that's
so
one of
true.
yeah, that's one of the first advices that I received. Yes.
That's true. The next one is what's the worst advice that you've ever received?
Worst advice, see, for me, I always feel any advice is something that now comes with their background in what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's up to you. How do you make out of it? And I believe always that every problem comes with an opportunity, right?
Wow,
So if somebody says your worst suggestion, I don't know. I mean, if it's up to us, how do we actually take it? Because if somebody is meaning good, that's what it is. Let them give the advice, but it's up to you to implement it, right? So I
that's
wouldn't
true.
say anybody if they've come to us me and told some advice, it's definitely not a worst advice. It's basically they were meaning good. So
Okay. But
it's
so worst over here could be a bizarre advice. So, for
right,
example, I remember someone just told me once that okay, if you're studying very hard, you'll not be very successful. And I was like, why are you saying this in the first place? Because
correct.
everyone that I see around, right? So
Yeah.
probably that person could have come from a different school of thought.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was the question.
Yeah. So in fact, if you look at the previous thing, what is the worst thing that I had? The best thing
Yeah,
that I was told, it's
yeah,
on the similar line. Somebody told me, "Hey, maybe I think you should pursue your career in, teaching." So
yeah.
I wouldn't say it's worse, but it was probably they were trying to say that I may probably do good in teaching. That's what their mean. This one was.
Understood.
So I took their advice. It's not that I didn't take their advice. It's just that I didn't implement anything on that.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So one word to describe your leadership style.
Uh, Very adaptive. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's for sure. Favorite city to work in?
Uh, I would say Bengaluru to start with.
That's
I know it's not a very, I know it's a very controversial answer, but yes, I would say it's Bengaluru.
perfect, perfect. Any inspiration in the tech world?
Oh yeah, Steve Jobs. Obviously, I think he goes now. He's an inspiration in very different ways, right? And One thing that I also told is, uh, sorry, somebody's trying
Hmm.
to, yeah. So, if at all we really look at, I believe we learn a good thing from every individual that we meet. So
Yeah.
that way, I think every person we meet is actually a guru for us. It's just that are we willing to take that good element from them or not? Or are we just looking at, what is not needed for us from the person, right? So
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, obviously an inspiration, but I believe we actually inspire each other.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway.
That's really true. But you take the part that you really look up to, right, from
Correct.
people, and just imbibe it within you. That's
Yeah.
true. One
No,
hobby
Anmol,
that you, sorry.
if I may just extend that, I used to actually
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this for some time. I stopped over a period of time though. And in fact, whoever a person I used to meet, I used to actually record one good thing in them. I used to do that as
Oh,
part of my end of the day exercise, the journaling that we do. I used to actually
yeah.
note down this person and what that person is good at. I used to actually note it down. In fact, I had a spreadsheet which I lost in a computer crash for which I was maintained for almost 15 years.
Oh, oh God. I just hope I get a good remark somewhere. Okay. Now jumping on to what's one hobby you wish you had more time
Um, Hobbies are something that you make time for, irrespective
for?
of
Yeah.
what how busy you are. One thing,
Yes.
at least for the past 4 or 5 months, that I have not been able to do efficiently is running. Uh,
Okay.
I used to practice long distance running. I have done half marathons. That's the max I've gone. Actually, 30 kilometers is the max I've run so far. But still, I enjoy running. Something I've not been able to spend time much on. But I'm telling you one important thing, Anmol. Uh, it's not just that, right? Because I come from a classical music family. I
Yeah.
learned Bharatanatyam in my early age. I couldn't pursue that further.
Wow.
And again, time was a constraint. I did try reviving it a few years ago, but I don't think it really went anywhere.
Hmm.
Uh, I have learned classical music thanks to my mother from my childhood. I
Yeah.
have done a few exams and I can understand every raga that is available and things like that, and I can sing relatively okay. But still, I have not been able to pursue it further. I also collect a lot of instruments. I have a mandolin, I have a violin, I have a few guitars at home, etc. And my mother has a few veenas which are available at home,
Yeah.
including a flute. Yeah, they are there, but how much time I can really spend is what it is, right? I mean, I so I know it's a longer answer for your question, but there are a lot of hobbies which I believe that if I had time, I could probably do that. And yeah, there's only 24 hours that we all have.
That's so true. There are only 24 hours, right? Let's move to upskilling. What's your preferred mode of learning? Books, online courses, or maybe hands-on experience?
It's a combination, I would say.
Yeah.
There's no one silver bullet for all this, right? And
Yeah.
because what happens
Yeah.
is, sometimes based on the topic that you're learning, and if it is
Yeah.
the first time that you're learning, and you are not able to comprehend completely, maybe somebody teaching you can probably help. But there
Yeah.
are places where, the experiential learning will come into picture where you can do a hands-on and you can learn as well, right? But one thing that I just definitely learned from one of my close friends, his name is Nagendra, I told you earlier as well.
Yeah.
Uh, he's a guy who actually reads at least one book every week.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So, you remember that Three Idiots movie, and there is a this one, right? There's a character, the principal character. He actually keeps doing this thing. I keep teasing him the same way because at any given point in time, he'll be reading two books.
Wow.
So yeah, he'll finish this and it comes here and all that. So that's something that I've actually kind of learned through him. And that's what happens, right? When you are actually in a company of good friends around you, you actually get to learn a lot of things. And
Yes.
people basically say you're a combination of at least 5 or 6 people that you keep meeting regularly, right? And that's
Yes.
your behavioral patterns. So that's something that happens by default. So learning again, it's an art as well as a science, mostly because sometimes you have to be systematic if you have a fixed goal and a fixed duration. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's also about making sure it becomes a habit. And that's what it said. I think somebody shared, another friend of mine was sharing a quote very recently saying that if you read at least for 1 hour every day, it's 365 hours of reading on a year, which basically means it makes you much better than what you were last year.
That's so true. We've all seen that quote. 1 to the power 37 is equal to 1, but 1 1.01
Zero
to the
one.
power 37, right?
Yes.
And that is something we should all strive to be. Because
Yes.
again, one of my teachers back in my college told me that uh, with these books comes experiences of different people, right?
Yes.
And these are different lives that you'll not be able to experience in your own tenure
Absolutely.
on this earth, right? So that. Now the last question, which I feel is not very dicey, but we'll ask more opportunities or more challenges in the next 10 years for tech.
As I said earlier, I think every problem comes with an opportunity.
Mm.
Okay. If at
Yeah,
all we are thinking, say, AI is going to take over, and we'll probably, start looking for John Connor as part of that movie that came and things like that. No, please, let's all be realistic. It may take a
yeah,
few centuries before we reach there. But again, having said this, complacency is something that will be very easily killed by these automations, right? People
yeah.
who think that we need to have a work-life balance, but meanwhile it's only life-life balance, then we have a problem, right?
That's for sure. Right.
Yeah, so that is going to take over, I'm sure, because the way that the automation is coming into picture. I mean, simple way that you're looking at it is, I keep saying to my engineers at least that the moment you see, 3 times every day you're clicking the same button, it's time to automate, right? To do the same
Right.
job, right? So that's what is going to
Absolutely.
happen. And AI already having a lot of models, especially the LLMs coming into picture, at least some part of the automation becomes inevitable. Now,
That's true.
will there be a problem or an opportunity? Actually, it is an opportunity because you will have free time to think about much more things, right? A simple thing that we were thinking about, the generation now actually, when they are born, they already see a cell phone, a very powerful device which is actually handheld and can
Yeah,
do a lot more things. And
yeah,
I took at least 24 years to see my first mobile phone, right? So the learning, this one is different now. The learning
yeah,
appetite is different, and you already know a lot of new things without you
yeah.
realizing, right? Because that
That's
learning
true.
has been actually packaged for you and actually handed it over to you. It's just that you
That
have to bank on it and actually move on to the next level, right? Be it in the data science, be it in the cybersecurity, be it in the area of work in artificial intelligence, all this is going to actually help you to grow. Now we can start doing something more different than what we used to do earlier. I mean, if you really look at it, earlier we used to think, oh, do we really need a driver? Driving is, my own car. Why should I actually give somebody else the driving job? Right?
yeah,
Then comes the autonomous cars, right? If
yeah,
autonomous cars comes to reality, then we will start thinking about, oh, why are we losing the jobs? Because drivers will lose the jobs. The same thing happened when the metro trains came into picture, right? People started thinking,
yes,
oh, all the taxis will actually lose their business. Actually, no. You still have the
yeah,
business running in a different way. So it's all about the next 10 years in the tech industry. Definitely, there's going to be a lot of robotics-based automation that will come into picture. Our lives will
yeah,
become much more interesting. However, there will be definitive challenge to people who are complacent and people who
yeah.
don't want to think about where do they want to go next.
That's so true. That's so true. Because I think a lot of these AI will only leave you more and more your time in hand
Correct.
to
Correct.
upskill and to be better at whatever you want to be, right?
Correct.
Uh, AI is for a lot of us is like our personal intern these days, right?
Right.
And that too a free intern, if I may say.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that's very true.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about you mentoring a lot of folks, right?
Yes.
You've spoken with a lot of people. You've mentored many young professionals. So I just want to know what advice would you want to give to the generation that's probably graduating or that's 1 or 2 years down in tech and looking at you, or wants a path or career trajectory somewhat similar to you? Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. See, one thing is definitely there. The willingness to work, that should not die down, right? Because when I came in first into this industry, actually, I didn't have anybody other than my brother. Of course, my brother very clearly said, "Boss, I'm not going to help you. If you're making your career, you're making on your own." He coming from a central government office, he was like very, very clear. He's like, "No,
yeah,
don't even come to me for any help." Right? That's the kind of thing that was told, and it was very clear. And I was also clear about that. I didn't need any help neither.
yeah,
Now the time has changed. You actually get to network much ahead of it, thanks to websites like LinkedIn, etc., where you get this professional network to happen.
Yeah.
At least I know at least hundreds of students have connected with me in the past 3 months after my session in some of the colleges that I did. Mostly because they reach out to me asking, "Hey, how can I get better?" Right? So what can
Yeah.
help? So only thing that we need to really look at is one programming language, one good soft skill, something that you need to be good at, right? Because that's a given, and now that's a basic. If at all you're getting into really a programming language or a computer mode as such, right? Or an IT industry as such. What is also important for us to look at is the network that we build, right? Because I think you are equivalent to. I mean, your network is going to define your net worth. That's what people keep saying,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Yeah, so something that I learned recently from one of my colleague as well. So it's an interesting thought process, mostly because you get to learn a lot of things without you realizing from your network, and it's important for you to grow. And at least I used to tell this, and I definitely follow this every Friday. I would have spoken to at least one new person whom I have not spoken in the past 1 month, be it in my friend circle whom I have not been in touch with, or somebody new, or a colleague with whom I have not been in touch with for a month. I'll just pick up a phone, just call the person and say hi. Okay, helps me at least. I don't know if it will help you everybody, but at least for helps me because I have that personal touch with that person, right?
Yeah,
He or she may not realize that I'm doing it. I'll probably pick up a topic and talk. I may not actually make it very obvious. I'll probably pick up a topic and ping on the chat and say, hey, can we connect for a few minutes? Or I see the person in the office, just go and talk to that person. Why? It's mostly important to have that, the human touch, right?
yeah, that's
Something
true.
that we are losing over a period of time, thanks to, the OTTs of the world as well as the virtual setup that we are having. Even if
Yeah,
it is virtual, at least if you have that connect, right? Because remote working is becoming a norm nowadays, it's important
yeah,
for us to have that connect.
yeah,
Need
that's
not be
true.
work always, right? Like the way that we were conversing before we started and all.
Yeah,
It's just that conversation that we'll have for that 5-10 minutes just to say that, hey, how are you doing? Are you all right? Right?
yeah, yeah,
Brings in
that's
a
true.
huge difference. That connect, human connect is something that I believe we should continue. And that will probably take us a long way. That would be my suggestions for the future folks who are coming on board.
Perfect. No, that's really, really true because I think humans evolved just to make connections, right? We evolved as a species to connect with people, and that's where we've headed always. Be it a virtual thing or an in-person thing, we've always wanted to interact. We've always wanted to evolve, right? So I think that's a very, very good pointer that everyone should probably take care of. Also, now heading to your current role and discussing probably bits about that. As
Sure.
a seasoned technology leader who's worked in engineering leadership roles at multiple companies, what are the few mantras that you follow that are very personal to you while leading a large engineering team?
Absolutely. Oh, thanks. I mean, that's a very important topic that you bring up, Anmol,
Yeah.
because one thing that I believe is without we realizing somebody is actually following us.
Yes.
Somebody is always observing you. Somebody is always following you.
Mm.
I try and make it a point that, I'm self-conscious in terms of making sure I'm setting the right example, right? If at all I'm trying to say that, hey, you need to do this before that, I'll probably might like to make that, my example first, right?
Got it.
So that's where I try to make it a simple example. If at all I'm actually able to, send a leave request, I probably would have told 10 people saying that, hey, I'm probably going on leave. Not that I want to make it as a custom. It's more about, making sure everybody is aware, right? You
Got
also
it.
have the, no, that's a basic thing, right? Why
Yeah.
am I saying this? The reason why I say this is the discipline that we actually follow. Maybe I think for me, it was because of my upbringing, being the scouting, being NCC and things like that, that kind of
Yeah.
actually brought in that, rigor in terms of the basic thing that was required for discipline, right?
Got it.
Taking care of your own way of looking, taking care of, how you interact with the people, how do you greet them. These things matter a lot for me. So for me, that's my first personal mantra, which is essentially, if you are planning to be a leader, set the right example by following what you're actually saying,
Yeah.
right? That's first thing. The second thing is every day there needs to be something new that you learn. That's something that one new day, one new learning every day is something that's been my mantra for ages now. And,
Wow.
I think I prepared my LinkedIn profile in 2005 and it still has the same mantra, right?
Wow.
So that kind of explains that, what it means to me. Why do I say that? It's mostly
Yeah.
because uh, the world is changing and it's evolving, and every day new things come into picture.
Yeah.
Tools are limited, but the way that you solve the problem remains unique, right? Tools are, I mean, unlimited. That's what I want to say. So just to correct,
Mm.
tools are unlimited because you name a tool and you'll probably having a competitive tool very soon. Somebody else is bringing it up. Now, why do I say this? The reason I'm calling this out is if at all you look at any of the research and development companies, or if you talk to any of the PhD holders, they'll try to solve the problem and they're least worried about which tool they're using because for them, solution is more important, right? That's something that I also would like to, I actually follow that mostly because for me, technology is just a means to address a problem
Yeah.
solution. What we should be looking at is how do we solve the problem? What problem are we solving? And why are we doing what we are doing? So these are a couple of mantras that I follow on a regular basis as such.
Perfect. Perfect. I think there's a lot to learn from this session. Personally, I've been making notes throughout the session because I always tell my leaders over here at Recto that thank you for choosing me as the face over here because I get to speak with folks like you and I get to learn so much with leaders. Because see, you guys come over here with years of experience, something where I probably aspire to be, yes, for sure, but something that I don't have in me right now. And as we were speaking about it, right, you choose what you want to take from that person.
Correct.
So I just quickly summarize our session. First thing was to treat failure like a sport, like you did, obviously. Hats off to you because that age is very tender. I believe once we're around that age of 12 or just past our schooling, that age is something where we are very, very volatile as people. We are very uh, tough on ourselves, right? To be
Correct.
very precise about that.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that probably I'm taking back home. The second thing was, which we just spoke about it. If you're clicking on something three times, it's time to automate. The next thing is, be it anything or any job role or anything. If you have willingness to work, no AI can defeat you or no AI can beat you because you'll do better than me. AI doesn't come with an emotional factor, touch wood, luckily till now. Then the next thing is your network will define your network. Another habit that I'll imbibe probably is every Friday I'll talk to one new person. I'll try to do that because obviously I work in a remote setup. So we were having that discussion, right? I feel that I've kind of lost that human touch, and that is something that I would keep. And the three rules that we just spoke about, first one being discipline, to set the right example for your team. The second one, to learn something new every day before you go to sleep. And to understand what problem you're working on, to understand the reason why you're working on anything. Because until and unless the reason is not clear, you're not putting in your 100%, right?
Yeah. The
So
why is
that's,
very important.
yeah, the why is very important.
Yeah.
That's so true. Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with the session. I think the audience, everyone, I have a few questions, but I'm really, really sorry to everyone. We're short on time. I think you can all reach out to sir on his personal LinkedIn and shoot out questions, and he'll be more than happy to just welcome you all with replies and guide you all. That's it for today's session, sir. Anything that you would want to say?
No, so you picked up a right topic, right? You said, you will get to learn a lot from all the leaders. One point I'd
Yeah,
like to say is you will get to learn from everybody, irrespective of the age.
yeah,
And if you want to actually learn something new, you just talk to any of the teenagers who are dealing with the phones. They'll probably
yeah.
teach you a thing or two more than what we actually know already.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Now, this has been a very interesting session, and thanks to Recro for inviting me and considering me for the list of builders of Bharat. Really happy to be part of this growth journey that India is going through, and the India tech stack is what we call, which is very interestingly an open source technology stack that is actually happening. Many of us are getting a chance to work on it. I believe it's a long way for all of us to go collectively as a country, and it all depends on all of us coming together as a country and as people. Thank you so much, Anmol and Rekro, for inviting me for this conversation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You're a true builder of Bharat, indeed. Love talking to you and looking forward to your call on a random Friday.
Absolutely, Anmol.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Good
Take
day,
care,
sir.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good
Thank you,
day. Bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.